Okay, good morning. We're good to go. We have our press conference with Ambassador Dmitry Polyanskiy. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Theodore. I welcome everybody here. You are the early birds. We start at 9. I understand that it might be too early. I also want to give you a heads up that I will have to leave at 5 to 10 because we have a voting in Security Council and I don't want to miss the voting. People will not understand me. As I did several of previous times, I wanted to start with the tweet of the month and the quote of the month. So for the tweet of the month, I chose tweets, a couple of tweets which were posted by Mr. Alan MacLeod, senior staff writer for Mint Press News. But it was not only him who posted these things. So it's about the protest in Cuba. As you know, it was in the focus of attention. I received questions when I came here whether we want to discuss it in Security Council, whether it is related, and so on and so forth. Now everybody is a little bit less, I would say, emotional about this, but when it was the apex of this situation, a lot of mainstream media published photos of crowds protesting against governments in Havana, some news coverage, and so several of my colleagues, including Mr. MacLeod, pointed out that the pictures that were displayed by a lot of these outlets are fake. So, for example, you see it here. It's the picture posted by Financial Times, but it's not the only newspaper that posted it. Anti-government protesters in Havana Square on Sunday. But if you look at the slogans, for example, this 26 July, you will clearly see that this is not anti-government protest, this is pro-government protest. And they were much more crowded and numerous than the other one. That's why mainstream media decided to put them in this way, to post them in this way. And this is not the only, I would say, this is not the only example of such double standards. For example, you see here, again, it's not only Fox News, but some other news outlets, but what I have here is Fox News. This is the coverage. It's a video file, but we will not see it in video form here. It's a coverage of, again, anti-government mass protests, allegedly, with, strangely enough, with their slogans blurred at the screen, because their slogans were pro-government, not anti-government. So, colleagues, I think that there are no journalists like this in this room, so we're all not making fake news, we're spreading good news. And I encourage you to do so. But this is, of course, very regrettable when there are manipulations like this. As for the quote of the month, thank you, I think we can switch it off, Theodore. As for the quote of the month, this morning I was watching Euronews, and Euronews was covering the visit of self-proclaimed leader of Belarusian opposition, Mrs. Tikhanovskaya, to United States. I think it's going on. And as you know, yesterday she had a meeting with President Biden, which was highly advertised, and there were a lot of comments about this. And of course, Mrs. Tikhanovskaya said that Belarusian opposition has the support of President Biden. But I want to give you one quote. It's from Russian page of Euronews. I don't know whether it is an English page, but it's on Russian page. So, speaking about support of American government, she says, in case that some country will make use of the weakness of the regime, United States will be on our side. It's a quote from Mrs. Tikhanovskaya. So let's try to imagine this situation anywhere else. For example, a leader of some American movement comes to Russia and says, if some country decides to explore the weakness of American system, Russia will be on our side. Can you imagine the reaction? I don't think I need to comment furthermore. This is, of course, clear appeal to regime change, clear appeal to interference into internal affairs of a sovereign state. I don't know who is advising Mrs. Tikhanovskaya, but I think she made it absolutely clear for whom she works and what is her real aim. Okay, this is about tweet of the month and quote of the month. As for our press conference, well, I will make a very short introduction. I will draw your attention to maybe a couple of highlights from our work this month. One of them is the adoption of the cross-border mechanism resolution on Syria. This was a very good and outstanding result. It was a result of Russia-US understanding and cooperation. We hope that it will continue like this. I would also draw your attention to the fact that despite the fact that a lot of media started to comment that this is automatic 12 months prolongation of cross-border mechanism, this is not the case, because it is clearly said in the resolution that it is subject to substantial report from Secretary General that it can be prolonged for another half a year. And there are a lot of conditions in this text. If you compare the previous rollover resolution, for example, and the current one, you will see that it is very significantly beefed up with a lot of things that Security Council and international community are supposed to do in the run-up to this possible prolongation in 6 months. So there is no automatism in this regard. And of course, we're looking forward to working with our partners to make it happen and to see a dramatic increase in cross-line deliveries and dramatic increase in the efforts to assist in the reconstruction of Syria. And of course, very much depends on Secretary General, on how transparent the report will be, how detailed. I think we have there concrete parameters of how it might look like. The second highlight that I chose was our attempt to pass the draft resolution on High Representative on Bosnia. As you know, it failed. 13 countries abstained, and the decision was not taken. We regret very much this decision, this situation, because now we have a kind of legal limbo as we see it, and the new alleged High Representative is clearly not. He doesn't have any legal grounds to take this position according to our position, our approach, and we really regret this development. We tried to make it along the lines of international law. Now we are in uncharted waters. We hope that there will be no significant degradation of the situation, but you never know. In any case, the mechanism of High Representative seems to be absolutely out of time, absolutely anachronical. So it doesn't belong to the current realities in Bosnia. We saw it one of these days when another decision was taken by the current High Representative, Mr. Inzko, against the will of Bosnian entities. The decision that potentially can very much put in danger the situation in this country. So I have also only one question from Mr. Joseph Klein in Canada Free Press on Afghanistan. I would say that this is normal that there is only one question, because I try to reply to everything that is being asked here, but I also encourage you to do, if you want some more in-depth analysis, please do it beforehand. It will make life much easier for me. So the question is, please explain any concerns that Russia may have regarding the dramatic resurgence of the Taliban in Afghanistan. Well, any concerns is very nice, polite formula. Of course, everybody has a lot of concerns, not any concerns. And we are very much worried by the situation in Afghanistan. We see that it is changing drastically with the withdrawal of American and NATO troops. We have close contact with our American colleagues. We share a lot of goals in Afghanistan. We cooperate on many issues. We understand that this cooperation will continue regardless of the fact that they decided to withdraw. We are very much worried on the implications of on potential instability in Afghanistan to Central Asia, to our neighbors, which directly affect Russia, because Russia is also bound by its commitments within the framework of CSTO. But we maintain contacts with all the Afghan parties, the government, the Taliban. The Taliban visited Moscow recently, as you might know. So they gave certain reassurances to us. They said that they do not plan any expansion, any provocations to neighboring countries. By the way, there are different forecasts on how the situation might look like in the nearest days, in the nearest months. Some people are very alarmistic and pessimistic, saying that it will be total control of Taliban. We think that this is, for the time being, a very unlikely scenario, and we hope that there will be a process of national dialogue, which will lead to the establishment of government of national accord. And we are very eager to contribute to this scenario in different formats, especially in the format of extended troika, which I think will meet very soon in Doha. So, the only question that I have, again, the floor is yours, but I also count on your understanding that I will have to leave at 5 to 10, okay?
Not the only, we have a lot of in the room. Edie first.
Okay, also voting, huh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. And on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, we always appreciate you doing these press conferences, especially in person.
It's my pleasure.
Two quick follow-ups to your opening comments, and then I have a question. My quick follow-ups are on Cuba. Basically, are you saying that the anti-government protests were smaller than was reported by the media, or that they didn't really take place? And on Bosnia, is Russia going to try to block the new High Representative from speaking to the Security Council? And my question is about two of the big issues on the Council agenda, Syria and Yemen. Geir Peterson has called for, or is really seriously looking into the holding of some kind of a major conference of key international players to try and move the political process forward. Is this something Russia supports? Have you heard any more details? And on Yemen, with Martin Griffiths gone, there still seems to be a tremendous amount of unrest, fighting, and what do you see happening in the next month or two? Thank you. Also, a new SRSG.
Okay, I think you gave us enough material for the whole press conference. I'm sorry, guys. Well, on Cuba, I'm not claiming that protests didn't happen, that they were smaller or not. I simply don't know. But I assume that if they were larger, then the media outlets will not have to cheat and to try to disguise protests, pro-government protests to anti-government protests. That's my humble assumption. And again, in any case, it's internal matter of Cuba. There are a lot of countries where there are protests for different reasons, for COVID measures, for government measures. It's a right of people to protest in any country, including Cuba. I don't like the situations when these scenarios are used for internal interference and for trying to bring the agenda in this or that country to the situation in this or that country to the agenda of Security Council. I simply don't have reasons for this. Again, there are very few non-problematic countries in the world. We all have problems, we all have our ways to solve them, and we need to respect sovereignty and territorial integrity of each and every state. That's the basis of our work. On Bosnia, to block High Representative from coming to Security Council, do you assume that we will physically block him, shut the door in front of him? Well, we hope that there will be enough of common sense with our Western partners because they clearly understand the situation. They clearly realize the mess that the situation in Bosnia is now about to be in as a result of their steps. So it's still a long way to go before he makes his appearance, or he'll try to make his appearance. At least I can tell you that, of course, in our eyes, the new High Representative is not legitimate. We do not acknowledge the fact that his taking position happened within the lines of international law. We think that it should happen through the Security Council. Again, we presented the resolution to make it legal. Our partners declined this resolution. It means that now it is illegal. That's the only way how you can interpret this situation. And again, we will see what kind of implications it might have. The situation there on the ground develops quite rapidly. Maybe we will we will have better knowledge of what's happening in the coming months or weeks. We'll see. So Syria, well, as you know, it's not that we want to monopolize some kind of negotiation track on Syria. We were, since the very beginning, advocating for dialogue, for finding a solution. But the fact is that there are certain parties, certain states that still don't want to engage with the current Syrian government, which is legitimate and recognized by the whole world. So I don't know what kind of magic solution Mr. Pedersen has to accommodate these concerns, how he will bring on board all the parties to the negotiation table, including government. Let's see. He's a very talented and experienced diplomat. We respect him very much. But so far, we think that the only working format is the Constitutional Committee, which is taking place in Geneva. We hope that there will be another meeting of this Constitutional Committee. We're trying to assist as much as we can in Astana format to the settlement in Syria and to the launching and getting speed of the work of a Constitutional Committee. I know that there are efforts of other countries to contribute to Syrian settlement if these efforts are positive, if these efforts proceed from the understanding from the respect of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Syria. I think they can be only welcome. But devil is in the details, so let's see what will come out of this. As for the Yemen, again, I'll have to use my I think at every press conference I say that I don't have a crystal ball. So I don't have a crystal ball really on Yemen. So nobody knows what will happen. We think that there are some positive trends, some negative trends. Let's see which kind of them would prevail. We expect quite soon the assignment of the new SRSG. We think that it is in the interest of everybody, and let's wait a little bit because the process is underway. Hopefully it will result in some name soon, and we will be most pleased to interact with him or her in the Security Council and elsewhere. Okay?
Al Jazeera.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Kristen Salumi from Al Jazeera English. It's been almost 6 months now since the military took over in Myanmar. COVID is surging. There's no sign of implementing the plan that was decided by ASEAN. No representative chosen for ASEAN. Is it time for the Security Council to do more for Myanmar?
Well, Myanmar is, of course, a very complex issue. You can't view the situation in this country without the context of persisting attempts of foreign interference into the situation. Well, I don't know, frankly, the real information about what's happening in Myanmar because it is very conflicting. Of course, those people who claim to be Myanmar opposition, they try to show the picture of mass protests, of mass killings, of repressions. I don't know if it's true or not true. I simply don't have any verified sources to check it otherwise than the mass media that I showed to you. But given the facts what they show on Cuba, I would very much doubt to have any trust in what they are showing. Of course, this is wishful thinking. In any case, situation in Myanmar is very difficult. We are in favor of any humanitarian assistance to this country in the scope and parameters that the authorities of this country would accept, because this is the principles of rendering humanitarian assistance. We are in favor of dialogue. We think that the regional structures, ASEAN first and foremost, is the best placed to hold such a dialogue. We see that there are divergences in positions among several key players around Myanmar, and this doesn't contribute very much to finding a solution. We feel that the dialogue is still possible, but we don't see any signs that the opposing forces are ready to such a dialogue, because so far they seem to be claiming that the only way out for Myanmar would be foreign military interference into its affairs and struggle with the military. That's how that's the information that I got about their claims, more or less. This is, of course, not the scenario which is favorable for Myanmar. So far, there is no dialogue. As soon as the opposition will make the decision to really sit at the table and listen to the concerns of the military, and the military will do the same about opposition, then we'll have hope. I'm not sure that the interference of Security Council in whatever way will help in this situation, because the first thing to explore would be the regional means to help the situation, and there is still a long way to go. So I think we should not step in at this stage. We are against any drastic measures. We are against any provocations in this regard, including, for example, today's ARIA formula meeting on Myanmar, which I see as a clear provocation. These steps do not contribute to finding any solution on Myanmar. We will not participate in this meeting. To anticipate your question.
Follow-up, if you're worried about military intervention, would an arms embargo then not be helpful?
In what way? I don't see a logic. What's the link between military intervention and not having military intervention and having arms embargo? Has it helped anywhere in the world, in the places when there are arms embargo? Has it prevented from military intervention from abroad? I don't know such examples, frankly speaking. This is totally different tool from another toolbox. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for this briefing. The situation in southern Syria is escalating, and of course Russia is maybe the only mediator, and you have a presence on the ground. How do you describe the situation in Daraa and southern Syria, and do you see that there is maybe a potential for a compromise in southern Syria, especially that we see now that Jordan and some other countries are more like showing openness to revive direct relations, especially on economical relations with the government. So how do you see the situation in southern Syria and also on Tunisia? I would like to hear your maybe assessment. What's your message to the Tunisians? Thank you.
Well, your first question on southern Syria, I would distinguish and separate two parts of this on the situation in southern Syria and regional cooperation and participation of Syria in regional cooperation. What do I think about situation in southern Syria? I frankly do not know much about this. If you read the mainstream media that I just showed on the screen, of course you will have very dramatic picture of what's happening, but I don't read mainstream media for the reasons I explained to you, or at least I don't trust them, because I don't have reason to trust them. The information that I get from other sources is not as alarming as you say. Well, there are, as you know, Syria is not the calmest country in the world, including the areas that were retaken by the government. Well, there are sleeping cells. There are people that are not kind of happy about what's happening. Of course, as everywhere in the world, there are protests because people are not happy with the government policy, with COVID measures, with whatever. This is normal for any country, including Syria. So let's not steal from them this right. But I would say that the protests and the economic situation in this country should be also viewed from the prospect of unilateral sanctions and coercive measures of some Western countries which are in place and which make the situation in this country much worse. We repeatedly draw attention to this fact during Security Council meetings, that it is very hypocritical on the one hand to appeal to increased humanitarian assistance to Syrians, on the other hand to keep unilateral sanctions and coercive measures. These are two things that do not live together, and that's why a lot of humanitarian actors complain about the fact that they feel the effects of side effects of economic sanctions in their work. They can't make transactions. They are threatened with retaliatory measures if they engage with Syrian government. Of course, it has certain projection on the ground. So I wouldn't be surprised that economic situation in Syria is not the one that the government might want to see. Again, this is a country in the war, which has to spend a lot of money on military targets. So I can imagine that at some point in some places there might be certain protests and certain people who are not very much happy with the way they live. But again, this happens everywhere. This happens in Russia. This happens in the United States, in your countries, in Tunisia. We will speak about this. So again, I don't have any information from reliable sources that would lead me to the conclusion that the situation is dramatic over there. As for regional cooperation, we think that we favor very much this scenario. We think that the neighbors of Syria are losing a lot since they don't have normal brotherly and neighborly ties with Syria, which they used to be. I know that a lot of countries are striving to reestablish such ties, and this would be in the interest of the whole Arab nation, I would say. So we encourage such efforts, and we hope that some other actors who are not happy with such a scenario will not interfere and will not put some kind of hurdles along this way, because this is beneficial for Syria, this is beneficial for Syrians, and this is beneficial for their neighbors. So that's the only scenario that Security Council should support. As for Tunisia, well, Tunisia was my first posting as a diplomat, so I'm very emotional about this country. I still have a lot of friends there, and these friends are very worried. That's on a personal note. They really say that the situation since the Arab Spring has deteriorated significantly. There may be different reasons behind this. Some people like this, some people not like it. It was the choice of Tunisians. They were confident to make such a choice, so we hope that they will sort out all the problems and come to certain agreement among themselves to help to put this country back on track for steady development. We value our relations with Tunisia. We don't think that what's happening in this country should be a focus of exaggerated international attention. We don't think that there is any reason to raise it in the Security Council, to anticipate your question, because no matter how dramatic it might be, but And this is internal Tunisian situation, and Tunisians are dealing with this, and we hope that they will find a solution that would be beneficial for Tunisia and for its neighbors. That's also my personal wish and my personal message to all my Tunisian friends. Okay?
Dmitry, part.
Thank you, Fedor. Ambassador, how do you see the future of Mali now that we have the UN, the Barkhane, which is changing its name? We don't know yet the name. Then Takuba, and maybe some other people. How do you see the future of that country?
Well, I would like to see the future of this country as a prosperous member of international community, as the whole African continent. So we see that the turmoil in this country is a little bit prolonged, and we don't like this scenario. We think that this country has all the reasons and all the tools to return to normal development and to sort out all the problems. We know that not all the problems, to put it mildly, are generated from internal Mali situation. We know that there is extremely dangerous interference from abroad, including from Islamist elements. So Mali, as well as their neighbors, are at the forefront of struggling with Islamists and with terrorists. That's why international community is helping them, and including through the Security Council. So we support all the efforts to help Mali. We work close with our partners who have more experience in Mali and who have more traditions in interacting with Malian forces, and we absolutely don't have any hidden agenda in Mali. We are totally on one page. We believe and we hope that the better the situation in Libya becomes, and the closer is this country to the light at the end of the tunnel, the better the situation in Mali will be, because, as we know, the instability in the Sahel region increased dramatically after the Western intervention in Libya in 2011. And since then, these countries experience a lot of problems, which are continuous, and with the borders in the region, which are very porous and sometimes do not exist, with this very difficult ethnic composition of peoples living in this part of the continent, it is extremely difficult to maintain law and order. And of course, the internal structures of a lot of countries are very fragile, and we need to assist them, not only politically but economically as well. So it has not been a very successful year for Mali. Let's acknowledge it. Let's hope that this country will turn this page and move forward for some better times. And we are very happy to accompany this country on this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I have two questions. First one, a senior Turkish advisor of Erdogan, I don't know if you heard about him. His name is Yasin Kattan, said 2 days ago that without the Syrian refugees, our economy will collapse. Do you have any comment on that?
Sorry, what did he say? Without
the Syrian refugees.
Without.
Mm-hmm. The Syrian refugees, our economy will collapse. And the second question is regarding the foreign fighters and the mercenaries. Erdogan said days ago to Anadolu news agencies that our forces are in Libya, are in Syria and Azerbaijan to stay. And our country is not concerned by the international calls to withdraw the mercenaries and the foreign fighters. Any comment also on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Turks are our neighbors. We know them for many years, for many centuries. We know that they are quite emotional people, and they are easily driven by the circumstances, and sometimes they say a lot of things that might be interpreted in a wrong way, for different reasons, for domestic consumption, for some, I don't know, other calculations. But they are good partners for us, they are good neighbors for us, so we interact on many issues. We interact on Syria, we interact on Libya, we interact on Nagorno-Karabakh, on many other conflicts, settlement. For the sake of the stability in the world, that peace in the world. So there are many Turks living in Turkey, and you know, if we wanted to comment the opinion of any one of them speaking to the press, then we will only do that. And a lot of people in Turkey say different things. But we also know that Turkey is our partner and the partner of other countries, and it has certain international obligations. It has also participated in a lot of forums, for example, in the recent Berlin conference. And the outcomes of Berlin conference, they foresee certain steps from certain countries. Everybody, I would say, I wouldn't single out Turkey, I would say everybody who is to this or that extent involved in the settlement in Libya. That's why we, when we speak about Turkish position, of course, we have in mind things that Turkey says internationally first and foremost, because for domestic reason, for domestic audience, things can be said in a different way or form, or they can be misinterpreted or exaggerated by media outlets for certain reasons. That's why we trust the things that are being said to us internationally, and the reassurances that are being made to us internationally. So judging from this, we have any reason to believe that Turkey is on board for resolution of these issues, and we are looking forward to cooperation on different tracks. As for the Libyan situation, I think it was quite clearly mentioned that everybody was for the withdrawal of foreign fighters, foreign forces, whatever, everybody who is there in Libya. But the question is that it should be done in a way, in a balanced way, in order not to upend the situation in this country, in order not to bring it back to the turmoil that it has faced, I mean military turmoil, that it has faced recently. That's why these steps should be taken with great caution, in a balanced way, and everybody understands this. We pointed out this position during also a meeting of the Security Council on Libya recently. It was quite clear, nobody questions it. So I think that's the approach that we all should take, and let's pay more attention to things that are being said internationally, in international audience, face-to-face consultations, and so on and so forth. Okay? Thank you.
The Rubicon of our press conference. Carla, please.
The Russian Foreign Ministry is stating that the U.S. is seeking a color revolution and regime change in Cuba, which in fact we have been seeking for 70 years. But do you think that the risk is even greater at this point? Mexico is sending a tremendous amount of aid into Cuba. Is the United Nations sending humanitarian aid into Cuba? And on another subject, I read recently that Hasim Thaki, I don't know how to pronounce it, the former president of the KLA and Kosovo, is being indicted for war crimes, the sale of human organs of Serbs. And I asked the question yesterday whether the United Nations is involved in this and involved in the court, in the criminal proceedings. And I was told the United Nations has nothing to do with it. So the question is, why was the United Nations so involved in the indictment of Serbian on charges of war crimes, and not involved in the indictment of the president of the KLA in Kosovo?
Well, Carla, this question is for the United Nations, I think, not for me, because I'm not representing Secretariat, I'm not representing these structures. You know, the position of Russia was very clear from the very beginning in terms of Kosovo, that we seek a balanced approach to the prosecution on war crimes, because on many occasions the Serbs were targeted and the other ethnic groups were kind of treated in a different way. I don't have concrete examples right now, but there are numerous and abundant, and we have this criticism. And not only us have this criticism, which undermines to a large extent the credibility of international efforts on former Yugoslavia. So I don't have the details on the issue that you mentioned about selling of human organs, but this information is resurfacing from time to time. I don't know how credible it is. We judge by facts, but not by allegations. But of course, it needs to be tackled with all the seriousness. In any case, as for Cuba, well, I didn't know that you were involved in regime change in Cuba. You said you were involved for many years. You're speaking United States, okay.
I think it's 70 years ago, and then multiple assassination attempts
Well,
against Fidel Castro, which they admitted.
You know what? No, I heard the question. First of all, I don't know whether you were at the beginning of my press conference or whether you came later, because I started with Cuba specifically. I would say that, well, different countries have different DNAs, I would say, yes, to simplify. Different people have different DNA. So somehow in the DNA of United States for century or even more, starting late 19th century, is the self-imposed desire to help everybody, to teach everybody, to mentor other countries how they should live, what they should do. And a lot of countries throughout the 20th century have suffered from this DNA, including Cuba, of course. But at the same time, United States also know how to draw conclusions from this. Remember Vietnam, Afghanistan right now. So they also understand that there is certain limits of what they can do, even with their DNA. And we feel that, we hope that they realize that the moment they do something with this DNA would be better not only for international community, but for the whole world. And this is, when I say DNA, of course, I don't mean that it is something that you can't change, because you can't change your DNA. I'm, of course, joking. But this is rather a set of principles, set of approaches, this messianic approach towards the world, which needs to be changed. But as long as it is, as long as it prevails in the United States, I think we are not saved from the recurrence of situation like Cuba. We are not saved from foreign self-imposed leaders of opposition visiting White House and receiving the assurances of support and clear indications of plans of regime change. So we are not kind of we will not be deprived of these amusing things in the time to come, unfortunately. But does it change something really very much on the ground? I don't think so. We know Cubans, we know how persistent they are, we know how patriotic they are, and they also went a long way. You mentioned the Bay of Pigs. There are other occasions when Cubans were in a very, very difficult situation. So again, if you don't read mainstream media, if you try to find information from different sources, the picture is not as black and white as you might have. So I heard from my friends that the situation in Cuba has pacified, and that there are certain initiatives from the government that are being considered right now. But it's very difficult for me to judge. I'm not specialist on Cuba. And as for the regime change policy, we are always very clear that we are totally against this practice. We think that it is detrimental to the international community. It is detrimental to the world. There are many long-standing repercussions of this policy in the world, in different regions of the world. So the moment it changes, the moment it will be put off, and it will become a part of history, the better I think it is for the whole of international community and for the United States first and foremost. Okay.
Okay, let's run quickly through the chat. Even some Azem, are you here? Are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me? See me? Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Ambassador. I have a follow-up on the cross-border resolution in Syria. So you said in your introduction that there should be a dramatic increase in cross-line aid and in reconstruction's efforts in Syria. My question here is, as you know, Western countries said many times that they are not going to be involved in reconstruction efforts in Syria under conditions. So is there now, do you see a change in their policies? What do you exactly mean by reconstruction's efforts? And does this include also lifting sanctions or easing them from your point of view? Are you not taking off the table a possibility of having to vote in 6 months about the renewal of the other 6 months? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. As the answer for your last question is, I think, quite clear from what I said. So there is no automatic renewal. We'll see in half a year what we have on the table, what we have on the plate, and then we'll decide how and if the cross-border mechanism will be prolonged. So no automatism at all. As for reconstruction efforts in Syria, well, as you know, that the resolution was adopted unanimously. All the 15 members voted in favor, and many of them praised this resolution. If you read the text of this resolution, you will see, for example, the support of early recovery projects in Syria, which was not there in the previous decisions of the Security Council. You will see there a lot of demands for transparency, for bringing a clearer picture of how the humanitarian aid is distributed through the cross-border mechanism, who are the partners, what is the chain, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that should be clear in the new Secretary General reports that will follow shortly. And also, well, on cross-line, there is also a big passage on cross-line. I think it's self-explanatory that we all shall display utmost efforts to launch cross-line deliveries. You know our position that cross-border mechanism is something that belongs to history because it was adopted at some point of time when Syrian government was not in control of most of its territory. It had certain reasons, and it goes totally against the logic of humanitarian assistance, which you know that the first and foremost principle of humanitarian assistance should be the accord, the consent of the receiving country. So Syria opposes to cross-border mechanism, you know it, consistently from the very beginning. And we had to do it because now we had to agree to a certain prolongation, and year before and 2 years before, because there is a certain part of Syrian territory which is so far not under the control of the government. That was the only reason. So now our international partners should prove that they are sincere in their pledges to us, that they will work through cross-line deliveries as well. For the initial period, we will want cross-line deliveries to supplement cross-border deliveries, for them to work in kind of a single package, because if it's about helping people living there, then it doesn't matter very much how you deliver humanitarian aid, through cross-border or cross-line. This is absolutely out of, it's not a problem for such an equation. But if you have political reasoning, yes, this matters very much. So we think and we believe that the political reasoning shouldn't be one of calculations behind our decisions on Syria in this regard. So we'll see. I advise you to study the resolution very closely. I will advise you to put to the side the previous resolution, which was a technical rollover, and you will understand what are the changes, and you will see for yourself that the changes are very significant, I would say. Structural changes and principal changes of international approach to humanitarian assistance in Syria. So it implies that there should be changes, there should be visible changes that should be visible by the time that we will have to take a decision in half a year on whether to prolong cross-border mechanism. Thank you.
So maybe we'll have the last question time.
Yes, maybe one question, and then I will
Pamela Falk.
unfortunately leave you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for the briefing. My question is, what do you feel about the stall in negotiations for the Iran nuclear talks in Vienna? The Ayatollah in Iran said yesterday that the U.S. is stubborn. Do you have any thoughts on where they're going? The seventh round is up in the air. Thanks so much. And it's partly because JCPOA is a UN and codified treaty. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. It's our child, and we acknowledge it. We have certain responsibility for this child. And that's why we're actively involved in Vienna in negotiations, trying to bring the US and Iran back to compliance with the JCPOA. Again, I would say that we shouldn't forget about the sequence of events. And of course, the fact that Iran deviated a little bit from its commitment is a direct consequence of what the United States did when it withdrew from JCPOA. So we shouldn't forget about it. And the whole negotiation, as we see it, is first and foremost of how the United States could return to this deal. And there were a lot of things that have been done or said after that by different administrations, especially by Trump administration. We can't forget about them, and Iranians, of course, also can't forget about them. So it's not as simple as it may seem. There are a lot of things that United States have to do and has to do, and it hasn't yet committed to a lot of things that it should do, as far as I know. There are also a lot of things that we all expect from Iran, and Iranians know about this, but they see the sequence in the way I described it to you, that we need not to forget who is to blame for this situation first and foremost. With this understanding...
Is Russia trying to... I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is Russia trying to get them back on board?
Both of them, sure.
In the talks?
Of course, that's everybody is trying to do this. It's our interest to get to certain understanding which would revive JCPOA and allow it to move forward. That's why the team is working 24/7 in Vienna from different countries. I know that Iranians they are present in Vienna diplomatically, and they are also engaged in these activities. So I would say that this is the scenario that we all want, but there are a lot of details. Some of them I don't even know about what's happening. There are a lot of things yet to be discussed and to be decided, and we encourage the United States and Iran to come to certain agreement, to come to certain terms on how to come back to the compliance, and for the United States how to return to the deal first and foremost. But again, I need to reiterate that when we picture this situation, we don't have the right to forget about the sequence of events that led to this crisis in JCPOA that we're having since the withdrawal of U.S. administration. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope it was useful. I wish you a nice and pleasant day, and I hope that in a month's time I will be on vacation, hopefully still, and so Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia will do it much better than I do, and then we'll see. Okay? Thank you.